The galaxy was at war. For years, humanity had watched from the sidelines as older, more advanced species clashed across the stars. But now, Earth's leaders saw a chance to prove that humans belonged among the great powers of the cosmos. It was an opportunity too good to pass up. A chance to show everyone that humanity was strong, brave, and ready to fight for what was right. Ethan Carter stood on the deck of the starship Pioneer Dawn *, staring out at the endless expanse of space. He was tall, with short brown hair and sharp blue eyes that always seemed focused, even when he wasn't sure what lay ahead. Ethan had grown up dreaming of adventure, and now here he was, about to step into the biggest fight of his life. A decorated fighter pilot back home, he had been chosen to lead one of the first human squadrons in galactic combat. This was his moment to shine. Nearby, Lily Harper worked quietly at her station. She was petite, with curly black hair tied back in a loose ponytail and glasses perched on her nose. Her hands moved quickly over a glowing screen as she fine-tuned the weapon systems she had spent months designing. Unlike Ethan, Lily didn't dream of glory. What drove her was the hope that her inventions would keep people safe. Still, she couldn't deny feeling a spark of excitement. After all, how many engineers got to see their work tested in real battles among the stars? The Pioneer Dawn hummed with activity as thousands of soldiers prepared for their journey. The ship itself was massive, its sleek silver hull bristling with cannons and missile launchers. Inside, corridors buzzed with nervous energy. Some soldiers laughed and joked, trying to hide their fear. Others sat silently, lost in thought. Everyone knew this mission was important, but no one really understood just how dangerous it would be. As the ship left Earth's orbit, Ethan leaned against a railing, watching the blue planet shrink behind them. "Do you think we're ready for this?" he asked Lily, who had joined him. She glanced up, pushing her glasses higher on her nose. "I don't know," she admitted. "We've trained hard, and our tech is good. But out there, against those aliens, I guess we'll find out." Ethan nodded, though her words made him uneasy. He trusted Lily. She was smart and practical, qualities he admired. But her honesty reminded him of something he didn't like to admit. Humans were new to this. Compared to species like the Zarnath Collective or the Kalian Empire, Earth was still a child learning to walk. Days passed as the Pioneer Dawn traveled deeper into space. Finally, they reached the front lines near Xylora 7, a gas giant surrounded by swirling storms of bright orange and purple plasma. Alien ships filled the sky, locked in chaotic battles. Explosions lit up the darkness, and debris floated silently through the void. It was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Ethan's squadron launched almost immediately. His heart raced as he guided his fighter toward the enemy, adrenaline coursing through his veins. The other pilots followed close behind, their movements precise and coordinated. Together, they took down several Kalian fighters, scoring an early victory that boosted morale. Back on the ship, Lily monitored the battle from her station. Her fingers flew across the controls as she analyzed performance data and adjusted weapon settings in real time. When Ethan's squadron returned safely, cheers erupted throughout the command center. For a moment, everything felt perfect. But perfection never lasts. Over the next few days, cracks began to appear. The humans fought bravely, but they weren't winning. They were barely surviving. Enemy ships moved faster, fired more accurately, and seemed to anticipate every move. Casualties mounted quickly, and supplies dwindled. Even worse, Ethan noticed something strange. Sometimes, after suffering heavy losses, the Kalians would retreat without finishing the fight. Why weren't they pressing their advantage? And why did it feel like humanity was being pushed into situations where failure was almost guaranteed? Lily noticed it too. Late one night, while reviewing reports, she stumbled upon classified messages discussing acceptable casualty rates. Her stomach churned. Acceptable? Who decided what was acceptable? She wanted to tell someone, But who would listen? Everyone was so focused on proving humanity's worth that no one stopped to ask if the cost was worth paying. Ethan and Lily exchanged worried looks during meals and briefings. They didn't say much. There wasn't time. But they both felt it. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The battles kept coming, one after another, with no end in sight. Ethan Carter and his squadron were thrown into the thick of it almost daily. The Kalians, their primary enemy, were relentless. Their sleek, black ships darted through space like shadows, striking hard and fast before vanishing into the chaos of the battlefield. Each skirmish left Ethan more frustrated than the last. His squadron was skilled, but they couldn't keep up. Every victory came at a cost: damaged ships, injured pilots, or worse. Lily Harper spent most of her time in the engineering bay, surrounded by the hum of machinery and the smell of burning metal. She worked tirelessly to repair damaged fighters and upgrade weapon systems, trying to give the human fleet any edge she could. But no matter how much she improved the technology, it never seemed enough. The Kalian ships were faster, stronger, and smarter. Even Ethan, with his quick reflexes and sharp instincts, struggled to outmaneuver them. One day, during a particularly brutal fight near a field of floating asteroids called Shadow Drift, Ethan noticed something strange. The Kalians had been gaining ground, overwhelming the human forces with sheer numbers. But then, just as suddenly as the attack began, they pulled back. It didn't make sense. They had the upper hand. Why retreat? Back on the asterisk, Pioneer Dawn asterisk, Ethan brought his concerns to Commander Hayes, the ship's stern and no-nonsense leader. "Sir," he said, standing tall despite the exhaustion etched on his face, "the Kalians are retreating too easily. We're not winning these fights. They're letting us win. Or maybe they're using us for something." Commander Hayes frowned but didn't look surprised. He leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed. "Carter, you need to focus on your job. Leave strategy to those who understand the bigger picture. Humanity is here to prove itself, and that means adapting quickly. If we hesitate, we'll lose our chance to earn respect among the galactic powers." Ethan wanted to argue, but he knew better. Instead, he nodded stiffly and left the room. Still, the unease gnawed at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being played, used as pawns in a game they didn't fully understand. Meanwhile, Lily was uncovering secrets of her own. Late one night, while reviewing data logs, she stumbled upon something alarming. The weapons systems she had designed weren't just being used against the enemy. They were also being tested on human soldiers. Experimental tech, still in development, was being deployed without proper safety measures. Soldiers were dying because of it, and no one seemed to care. The discovery hit her like a punch to the gut. She tried to report it to her superiors, but they dismissed her concerns. "Collateral damage," one officer said coldly. "War isn't clean, Harper. You should know that by now." Frustrated and angry, Lily confided in Ethan. They met in a quiet corner of the ship, away from prying eyes. "It's not right," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They're using us, our people, as experiments. How many have to die before someone listens?" Ethan clenched his fists. "I don't know what to do," he admitted. "We can't stop this alone. But if we keep going like this, there won't be anyone left to save." Despite their fears, life aboard the asterisk Pioneer Dawn asterisk continued. The ship sustained heavy damage in a surprise attack, forcing Lily to work around the clock to keep critical systems running. Supplies dwindled and morale plummeted. Soldiers grew quieter, their laughter replaced by tense silence. Everyone could feel it. The war was taking its toll. Then came the ambush. The asterisk Pioneer Dawn asterisk received orders to patrol what was supposed to be a safe zone. But as soon as they entered the area, they were surrounded by both Kalian and Zarnith ships. For once, the two rival factions worked together, not to fight each other, but to target the humans. Explosions rocked the ship, sending crew members scrambling for cover. Alarms blared and smoke filled the corridors. Ethan fought desperately to protect the Pioneer Dawn leading his squadron in a desperate counterattack. Lily worked frantically to seal breaches in the hull and reroute power to failing systems. But it wasn't enough. The ship was falling apart, and casualties mounted by the minute. In the chaos, Ethan realized the truth. This wasn't just an ambush, it was a message. The humans weren't allies. They were expendable, sacrifices to be made in the name of someone else's victory. As the battle raged on, Ethan and Lily exchanged a glance across the command center. They didn't need words to understand what had to happen next. Whatever it took, they would find a way to survive and to expose the lies that had brought them here. The ambush changed everything. The Pioneer Dawn limped away from the battle, its once proud hull battered and scarred. Dozens of soldiers were dead or injured, and the survivors moved through the ship like ghosts, their faces pale and hollow. Ethan Carter stood in the command center, staring at the damage reports scrolling across a cracked screen. Each line felt like a punch to the gut. Names of friends, comrades, people he'd trained with, laughed with. They were gone. Just like that. Lily Harper sat nearby, her hands trembling as she reviewed the logs from the fight. She had managed to keep the ship together long enough for them to escape, but it wasn't easy. Parts of the engineering bay were still smoldering, and makeshift repairs held together by sheer willpower groaned under the strain. Her mind raced, replaying the ambush over and over. Why had the Kalians and Zarniths worked together? What did they gain by targeting humanity so viciously? Ethan finally broke the silence. "We can't trust anyone," he said, his voice low and bitter. "Not the Kalians, not the Zarniths, and not even our own commanders." Lily looked up, her dark eyes wide with worry. "I know," she whispered. "But what do we do now? We're outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of options." Before either of them could answer, Commander Hayes walked in. His uniform was torn, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. For the first time, he didn't look confident. He looked tired. "Listen up," he said, his voice sharp but strained. "We've been played. Humanity was never meant to win this war. We were bait, a distraction to weaken one side while the other gained ground." The room fell silent. Ethan's fists clenched, and Lily's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't just speculation anymore. Their worst fears were confirmed. Hayes continued, pacing back and forth. "Our leaders knew the risks when they signed us up for this. They thought we'd earn respect, prove ourselves worthy of a seat at the galactic table. But instead, we've become cannon fodder. Disposable. And if we don't figure something out soon, none of us are making it home." Ethan stepped forward, his jaw tight. "So what's the plan, sir? Keep fighting until there's nothing left, or cut our losses and run?" Hayes hesitated, then shook his head. "There is no plan. Not from Earth, anyway. If we want to survive, we'll have to make our own choices and live with the consequences." Later that night, Ethan and Lily met in the same quiet corner where they'd talked before. The ship was eerily silent, the usual hum of activity replaced by an oppressive stillness. They spoke in hushed tones, their words heavy with urgency. "We need to get out of here," Lily said, leaning closer. "Find somewhere safe, somewhere they won't follow." "And go where?" Ethan asked, running a hand through his hair. "We're deep in enemy territory. Every jump takes us farther from Earth, not closer." "There are places," Lily insisted, "neutral zones, systems no one fights over because they're too remote or too dangerous. If we can reach one, maybe we can regroup, figure out our next move." Ethan nodded slowly. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was better than staying here and waiting to die. "All right," he said after a moment. "Let's do it. But we'll need help. People we can trust." They spent the next few hours gathering allies. A handful of soldiers agreed to join them, men and women who had seen enough death and betrayal to know they couldn't rely on orders from above anymore. Together, they plotted their escape. The hardest part came when they decided to take control of the ship. It wasn't mutiny, it was survival. With Hayes' reluctant blessing, Ethan led a small team to secure key areas of the Pioneer Dawn *. Engineers rerouted power to critical systems, while pilots prepared for an emergency jump into uncharted space. As the engines roared to life, Ethan stood on the bridge, gripping the railing tightly. Behind him, Lily worked furiously at the navigation console, charting a course to a distant system rumored to be neutral. The rest of the crew watched anxiously, their faces tense with anticipation. "Ready?" Ethan asked, glancing back at Lily. She took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready." With a final burst of speed, the Pioneer Dawn * leaped into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of the battlefield and the lies that had nearly destroyed them. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and perhaps a chance to start over. But for the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The journey through hyperspace was long and tense. The Pioneer Dawn * groaned under the strain, its battered systems pushed to their limits. Ethan Carter paced the bridge, his eyes darting between the navigation console and the viewport. Outside, streaks of light blurred past, a reminder of how far they were from anything familiar. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed, even though the sensors showed nothing but empty space. Lily Harper stayed glued to her station, monitoring every system on the ship. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, rerouting power and stabilizing failing circuits. She didn't speak much, but her sharp focus kept everyone calm. If anyone could keep the Pioneer Dawn * flying, it was her. After what felt like days, the ship finally dropped out of hyperspace near a remote star system. The destination was a small, icy planet orbiting a dim red sun. According to old records, this place was called Valara, a name whispered in stories among spacers as a haven for those seeking refuge. No one knew much about the Valari, the species that lived there, except that they valued peace above all else. As the Pioneer Dawn * approached the planet, a sleek silver ship emerged from the atmosphere and moved toward them. Its design was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Smooth curves with no visible weapons. A voice crackled over the comms, calm and melodic. "You are not welcome here. Turn back." Ethan exchanged a worried glance with Lily before replying. "We mean no harm," he said carefully. "We're survivors of a war, not fighters anymore. We need help." There was a long pause. Then the voice responded, softer this time. "Explain yourselves, but know this: deception will not be tolerated." For the next hour, Ethan and Lily told their story. They explained how humanity had been used as pawns in a galactic conflict, how they'd been betrayed by allies and hunted by enemies. They spoke of the ambush, the losses, and their desperate escape. When they finished, the Valari ship remained silent for several minutes. Finally, the voice returned. "Land at these coordinates. You will be watched." The Pioneer Dawn * descended cautiously through the planet's thick atmosphere, landing on a flat expanse of frozen tundra. As the crew disembarked, they were greeted by a group of tall, slender beings with shimmering skin that reflected the faint sunlight. Their eyes glowed softly, and their movements were graceful yet deliberate. One stepped forward, an elder named Solon, and addressed the humans. "You bring violence with you," Solon said, his tone neither accusing nor kind. "Yet you cling to seek peace. Why?" Ethan swallowed hard. "Because we've seen enough violence," he replied. "We don't want to fight anymore. We just want to survive." Solon studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well. You may stay, for now. But understand, aggression will not be tolerated. Learn from us, or leave." Over the following weeks, the humans began to settle into life on Valara. The Valari provided food, shelter, and medical care, but they also shared their philosophy of nonviolence. Through conversations and observations, Ethan and Lily learned that the Valeri had once been warriors themselves, centuries ago. But they had chosen to abandon war, instead focusing on resolving conflicts through dialogue and understanding. Ethan struggled with survivor's guilt, haunted by memories of fallen comrades. He often wandered alone, staring at the icy horizon. One day, Solon joined him. "Your pain is a burden," Solon said gently, "but it can also be a teacher. What lessons will you take from it?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "I thought I was doing the right thing, fighting for something bigger than myself. But now, I'm not sure what any of it meant." "War rarely has meaning," Solon replied. "It is a cycle fueled by fear and pride. Breaking free requires courage of a different kind." Meanwhile, Lily immersed herself in studying the Valeri's methods of conflict resolution. She marveled at their ability to mediate disputes without resorting to force. Slowly, she began teaching others, sharing what she had learned. Some humans embraced the Valeri way, finding solace in its principles. Others resisted, clinging to their old beliefs about strength and honor. Tensions rose as factions formed within the human group. Those who wanted to return to Earth argued with those who believed staying on Valara was their best chance at survival. Ethan found himself caught in the middle, torn between his desire for justice and his growing belief that humanity needed to change. One night, during a heated argument, Lily stood up and addressed everyone. "We can't go back to the way things were," she said firmly. "That path only leads to more death. If we want a future, we have to build it differently." Her words struck a chord. Though not everyone agreed, many began to see the wisdom in her message. For the first time since leaving Earth, hope flickered in their hearts, not the hope of victory, but the hope of transformation. And so, under the watchful eyes of the Valeri, the remnants of humanity began to heal. They weren't soldiers anymore. They were survivors, learning to live without the shadow of war hanging over them. News of Earth's peril reached the humans on Valara in the form of a faint distress signal. The transmission was fragmented, its words broken by static, but the message was clear enough to send shockwaves through the group. Humanity's involvement in the Galactic War had come at a terrible price. Earth itself was now under attack. The Kalians and Zarniths, emboldened by their earlier victories against human forces, had turned their attention to humanity's homeworld. Cities burned, skies filled with enemy ships, and millions were displaced. Ethan Carter felt his stomach churn as he listened to the recording. He clenched his fists, anger and guilt swirling inside him. "We can't just sit here," he said, his voice tight. "Not while they're destroying everything we left behind." Lily Harper stood nearby, her face pale but determined. She understood Ethan's pain, but she also knew rushing into action without a plan would only make things worse. "What do you suggest we do?" she asked gently. "We're outnumbered and outgunned. Going back there blindly won't help anyone." Ethan didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned to Solon, the Valeri elder who had become both a guide and a mentor to them. "Is there anything you can do?" he asked. "Any way you can help us stop this?" Solon's glowing eyes softened, but his expression remained calm. "The Valeri do not take sides in wars," he replied. "Our role is to mediate, not to fight." However, he paused, considering his next words carefully. "There may be another way." Over the next few days, Solon introduced Ethan and Lily to the Valeri archives, a vast repository of knowledge collected over centuries. Among the records were detailed accounts of the Galactic Council, the governing body meant to maintain peace among species. Hidden within those files was evidence of corruption, secret agreements, manipulated battles, and deliberate exploitation of weaker races, including humanity. "This is it," Lily whispered as she scrolled through the data. Her hands trembled slightly as she realized the magnitude of what they had found. "This proves everything. The betrayals, the ambushes. They planned all of it." Ethan nodded grimly. "If we can get this information to the Council, maybe we can expose the truth, force them to act. But delivering the evidence wouldn't be easy. The Council's headquarters were located deep in contested space, surrounded by patrols from both the Kalians and Zaliths. Getting there would require skill, stealth, and sacrifice. Ethan volunteered immediately. "I'll lead the mission," he said firmly. "It's my responsibility. I dragged us into this mess. I'll fix it." Lily shook her head. "You're not doing this alone," she insisted. "I'm coming too." In the end, they compromised. Ethan would lead a small team aboard one of the repaired human fighters, using its speed and agility to slip past enemy lines. Lily would stay behind to protect the rest of the group and ensure their survival on Valara. It was a painful decision for both of them, but they knew it was necessary. As the day of departure approached, tensions ran high. Some of the humans argued that staying safe on Valara was more important than risking their lives for a doomed mission. Others supported Ethan, believing it was their duty to try. In the end, 5 volunteers joined him: pilots, engineers, and soldiers willing to give everything for a chance to save Earth. On the morning of the mission, Lily walked Ethan to the launch bay. She carried a small device containing copies of the evidence, wrapped carefully in protective casing. "Don't lose this," she said, pressing it into his hand. Her voice wavered, but her gaze was steady. "And don't lose yourself either." Ethan managed a weak smile. "I'll be back," he promised. "Just keep everyone together until then." The fighter roared to life, its engines lighting up the icy landscape. As it lifted off, Lily watched silently, her heart heavy with worry. She wanted to believe in Ethan's promise, but the odds were stacked against him. Still, she clung to hope. If anyone could pull off the impossible, it was him. Back on Valara, Lily threw herself into her work, channeling her anxiety into helping the others adapt to their new lives. She continued teaching conflict resolution methods inspired by the Valari, emphasizing patience, empathy, and understanding. Slowly, the humans began to see the value in these lessons, not just for survival, but for building a better future. Days turned into weeks, and there was no word from Ethan's team. Each passing moment weighed heavily on Lily, but she refused to give up. She reminded herself why they had come so far, and what they were fighting for. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it could learn. It had asterisked to learn. Far away, Ethan and his team faced countless dangers as they navigated hostile territory. Enemy ships pursued them relentlessly, forcing them to rely on quick thinking and sheer luck to survive. Every jump brought them closer to the Council's headquarters and closer to uncovering the truth about the war. Though separated by distance, Ethan and Lily shared the same goal: to change humanity's destiny. One fought through the chaos of battle, while the other worked quietly to plant seeds of peace. Together, they carried the hopes of a broken species toward an uncertain future. Ethan Carter's fighter ship darted through the darkness of space, its engines glowing faintly as it weaved between asteroids and debris fields. The journey to the Galactic Council's headquarters was fraught with danger. Enemy patrols roamed the area like predators, their sensors scanning for any sign of intruders. Ethan and his team had to stay hidden, relying on speed, stealth, and sheer determination to reach their destination. Inside the cramped cockpit, tension hung thick in the air. Each member of the team knew the stakes. Failure meant not only their deaths, but also the continued suffering of Earth and humanity's place as pawns in a war they didn't understand. Ethan gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white, as he guided the ship through another narrow gap between 2 massive rocks. Behind him, the others worked silently, monitoring systems and preparing for the next phase of their mission. Finally, after days of careful navigation, they reached the outskirts of the Council's domain. The headquarters loomed ahead, a colossal structure floating in the void, surrounded by layers of defensive ships and energy shields. It was an intimidating sight, but there was no turning back now. "This is it," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the weight of what lay ahead. "We've come too far to quit." The team devised a plan. Using data provided by the Valari, they identified a weak point in the shield grid, a small maintenance hatch that could be bypassed with precise timing. Ethan would pilot the ship close enough to deploy a probe carrying the evidence. If successful, the probe would transmit the information directly to the council chambers, exposing the truth about humanity's exploitation. As they approached the target zone, alarms blared across the cockpit. Enemy fighters had spotted them. Laser fire streaked past the ship, forcing Ethan to take evasive maneuvers. His heart pounded as he pushed the engines to their limit, dodging blasts while keeping the probe launch sequence ready. "Hold on," he shouted, banking sharply to avoid a missile. The ship shuddered violently, throwing everyone against their restraints. Sparks flew from a damaged console, and smoke filled the cabin. "We're hit," one of the crew yelled, coughing as he tried to extinguish a small fire. "Keep it together," Ethan snapped, his focus unshakable. He couldn't afford to lose control, not when they were so close. With seconds to spare, Ethan lined up the shot and activated the probe launcher. A small capsule ejected from the ship, hurtling toward the maintenance hatch. For a moment, everything seemed to slow down. The probe slipped through the gap just as enemy ships closed in, firing relentlessly. Then suddenly, the transmission began. Streams of data flooded the Council's network, revealing decades of manipulation and betrayal. Evidence of secret deals, staged battles, and deliberate sacrifices laid bare the ugly truth behind the Galactic War. Back on Valara, Lily Harper felt a strange sensation, a mix of hope and dread, as if she somehow knew the mission was unfolding. She stood outside the main settlement, staring at the icy horizon. Her mind raced with thoughts of Ethan and the others. Were they safe? Had they succeeded? Hours later, the answer came. News spread quickly across the galaxy as the Council convened an emergency session. The evidence was undeniable, and outrage erupted among the assembled species. Sanctions were imposed on both the Kalians and Zarniths, forcing them to withdraw their forces from Earth. Humanity's role in the conflict was officially condemned, but equally important, their suffering was acknowledged. For Ethan and his team, however, victory came at a cost. Their ship sustained critical damage during the escape, leaving them stranded in deep space. Only 3 of the original 6 survived the return journey, including Ethan himself. Exhausted and battered, they limped back to Valara, where Lily waited anxiously. When Ethan finally stepped off the ship, his uniform torn and his face streaked with dirt, Lily ran to him without hesitation. They embraced tightly, neither saying a word. There was no need. They had done what they set out to do, even if the price had been high. Over the following weeks, the humans on Valara began to rebuild, not just their lives, but their identity. Inspired by the Valari philosophy, many adopted a new mindset, rejecting violence and embracing cooperation. Lily became a leader among them, teaching the lessons she had learned and helping shape a brighter future. Ethan, though scared by loss, found purpose in sharing his story. He spoke of sacrifice, resilience, and the importance of seeking peace over vengeance. Together, they proved that humanity wasn't defined by its mistakes. It was capable of growth, change, and redemption. And somewhere, deep in the icy wilderness of Valara, a quiet promise took root. Never again would humanity fight wars it didn't understand. The aftermath of Ethan's mission rippled across the galaxy. The Galactic Council, once a symbol of order and justice, was thrown into chaos. Species that had long been rivals found themselves united in outrage over the revelations. Both the Kalians and Zarniths faced harsh sanctions, their fleets grounded and their territories restricted. For humanity, the outcome was bittersweet. While Earth was no longer under direct threat, the scars of betrayal ran deep. Back on Valara, life slowly returned to a sense of calm. The humans worked together to repair what little they had left, both physically and emotionally. Lily Harper took on a leadership role, guiding her people with quiet strength. She organized daily meetings where everyone could share their thoughts and feelings, encouraging open communication, a practice she had learned from the Valari. These gatherings became a cornerstone of their new community, helping them heal as a group. Ethan Carter spent much of his time alone, walking along the icy plains or staring up at the dim red sun. He carried the weight of his losses heavily, replaying moments from the mission in his mind. Though he had succeeded in exposing the truth, the cost felt unbearable. 3 of his team were gone, including close friends who had trusted him to bring them home safely. Guilt gnawed at him, even as others praised him as a hero. One day, Solon, the Valeri elder, approached Ethan during one of his solitary walks. "You carry pain," Solon said softly, his glowing eyes reflecting the faint light. "But pain is not meant to be carried forever. It is meant to teach." Ethan sighed, kicking at the frozen ground. "I don't know if I've learned anything," he admitted. "All I know is that too many good people died because of me." Solon tilted his head thoughtfully. "You cannot change the past," he said, "but you can shape the future. Your actions have already changed the course of your species. What will you do with that power?" The question lingered in Ethan's mind long after Solon left. He realized that while he couldn't undo the sacrifices made, he could honor them by ensuring they weren't in vain. Slowly, he began to step back into the role of a leader, joining Lily in her efforts to rebuild and reshape their community. Together, Ethan and Lily worked to spread the Valeri philosophy among the humans. They taught lessons about empathy, patience, and understanding, emphasizing that conflict didn't always need to be resolved through violence. Many embraced these ideas, eager to leave behind the destructive patterns of their past. Others struggled, clinging to old beliefs about strength and dominance. But even those skeptics couldn't deny the results. For the first time since arriving on Valara, there was a sense of unity and purpose. As months passed, news from Earth trickled in sporadically. The planet was recovering, though slowly. Cities devastated by the war were being rebuilt, and leaders called for reforms to prevent such disasters in the future. Inspired by the evidence Ethan's team had uncovered, Earth's government vowed to abandon its militaristic ambitions and pursue diplomacy instead. Humanity would no longer seek glory in battle. It would strive to become a mediator, a voice of reason in a galaxy torn apart by fear and pride. Lily played a key role in this transformation. Using data provided by the Valeri, she developed proposals for Earth's leaders, outlining ways to integrate nonviolent conflict resolution into their policies. Her work earned recognition not only from humans, but also from other species who saw potential in humanity's newfound direction. Ethan, meanwhile, focused on preserving the memory of those who had fallen. He helped create a memorial aboard the remnants of the * Pioneer Dawn *, etching the names of every lost crew member into a plaque. Beneath the list of names, he added a simple inscription: * Never again shall we fight wars we do not understand. *. The words became a mantra for the survivors, a reminder of the lessons they had learned and the path they now chose to follow. Even as they prepared to eventually return to Earth, the humans knew they would never forget their time on Valara, or the sacrifices that had brought them here. In the end, humanity emerged stronger, not because of victories won, but because of truths uncovered and changes made. Ethan and Lily looked toward the future with cautious optimism, knowing that while the road ahead wouldn't be easy, it held promise. Together, they had shown that peace was possible, even in a galaxy scarred by centuries of war. And perhaps, just perhaps, humanity could lead the way in forging a better tomorrow, for themselves and for all who shared the stars. Years passed, and the galaxy began to change. The revelations brought by Ethan's mission forced many species to reevaluate their roles in the endless cycle of war. Old alliances crumbled, and new ones formed, built not on fear or greed, but on mutual understanding. Humanity, once dismissed as reckless and naive, earned a fragile but growing respect for its decision to step away from violence. On Valara, life continued in quiet harmony. The humans had integrated into the icy world, building homes that blended with the landscape and adopting sustainable practices taught by the Valeri. Though they still dreamed of returning to Earth someday, Valara had become more than just a refuge. It was a place of healing and growth. Ethan Carter grew older, his hair streaked with gray, but his eyes remained sharp and focused. He spent much of his time mentoring younger generations, sharing stories of the past not to glorify war, but to teach its lessons. "We thought strength came from fighting," he would say during gatherings around the fire. "But real strength is knowing when not to fight." Lily Harper also aged gracefully, her curly black hair now tinged with silver. She became a bridge between humanity and the Velari, translating their wisdom into terms others could understand. Her workshops on conflict resolution drew participants from across the galaxy, earning her recognition as a pioneer of peace. Despite her achievements, she remained humble, always crediting those who had stood beside her during the darkest days. The * pioneer Dawn *, though long retired from service, remained a symbol of resilience. Its battered hull was preserved as a monument, standing tall against the icy winds of Velara. Visitors from other worlds often came to see it, marveling at the courage of those who had risked everything to expose the truth. The plaque bearing the names of the fallen served as a reminder of the cost of war and the value of peace. Eventually, Earth called them home. Humanity's leaders, inspired by the changes sparked by Ethan and Lily, invited the survivors of the * pioneer Dawn * to return and help guide the planet's transformation. It was a bittersweet moment for everyone. Leaving Velara meant saying goodbye to the place and people that had saved them, but it also offered a chance to share what they had learned. As their ships lifted off from the frozen tundra, the Velari gathered to watch. Solon stepped forward, raising a hand in farewell. "You carry our teachings with you," he said, his voice carrying through the crisp air. "May they light your path." Back on Earth, the survivors found a world slowly rebuilding itself. Cities were rising again, this time designed with cooperation and sustainability in mind. Leaders embraced diplomacy, working closely with the Galactic Council to ensure humanity's role was one of mediation rather than aggression. Ethan and Lily became advisors, their voices heard in councils and classrooms alike. Decades later, when both Ethan and Lily had passed on, their legacy endured. Humanity thrived as a force for peace, earning trust and admiration from species across the stars. The inscription on the * pioneer Dawn * plaque became a cornerstone of Earth's new philosophy. * never again shall we fight wars we do not understand. *. And so, humanity stepped away from the battlefield, forever changed by the price it had paid. No longer warriors, they became mediators, healers, and builders, proof that even the most broken can rise again, stronger and wiser. In a galaxy scared by centuries of conflict, they offered hope, a reminder that understanding and compassion could triumph over fear and hatred. The stars shone brighter now, their light reflecting not just the vastness of space, but the boundless potential of those who dared to dream of a better future. Generations came and went, but the story of Ethan Carter, Lily Harper, and the * pioneer Dawn * never faded. It became legend, a tale told in classrooms, whispered around campfires, and etched into the annals of history. The lessons they had learned on Velara shaped not only humanity's future, but also its identity. No longer were humans seen as brash newcomers eager to prove themselves through violence. Instead, they emerged as voices of reason, advocates for peace in a galaxy still grappling with the shadows of its violent past. Earth flourished under this new philosophy. Cities evolved into hubs of collaboration, where species from across the stars gathered to exchange ideas and resolve disputes without bloodshed. Parks replaced weapons factories, and schools emphasized empathy and understanding over competition and conquest. Humanity's leaders worked tirelessly to ensure that no one forgot the cost of war, the lives lost, the trust broken, and the scars left behind. The * pioneer Dawn *, though long abandoned, remained a sacred site. Pilgrims traveled from distant planets to stand before its weathered hull and read the plaque bearing Ethan's words, * never again shall we fight wars we do not understand. * For many, it was more than just a memorial. It was a promise, a vow to remember the mistakes of the past and strive for a better tomorrow. Lily's teachings spread far beyond Earth. Her methods of conflict resolution became standard practice in diplomatic negotiations, studied by mediators across the galaxy. Textbooks bore her name, and statues of her stood in public squares, depicting her as a symbol of hope and wisdom. Yet those who knew her best remembered her not for her fame, but for her kindness, her ability to see the good in others, even when it was hard to find. Ethan's legacy lived on differently. He was remembered as a man of action, someone who had faced impossible odds and refused to give up. His courage inspired countless individuals to stand up for what was right, even when the path seemed uncertain. Stories of his bravery during the mission to expose the truth were retold endlessly, reminding people that change often begins with a single act of defiance. Over time, humanity's relationship with the Velari deepened. Though separated by distance, the bond forged on the icy plains of Velara endured. Trade agreements gave way to cultural exchanges, and soon, humans and Velari worked side by side on projects aimed at healing the galaxy. Together, they planted forests on barren moons, cleaned polluted atmospheres, and rebuilt worlds shattered by centuries of war. But perhaps the greatest testament to humanity's transformation came when the Galactic Council approached them with an unprecedented request. "You have shown us another way," the council leader said during a formal assembly. "Will you guide us as mediators, helping to end conflicts before they begin?" It was a role humanity accepted with humility. Teams of diplomats, trained in Lily's methods and guided by Ethan's example, traveled to troubled regions, offering solutions rooted in compassion rather than force. Slowly, the cycle of violence began to break. Old enemies found common ground, and alliances once built on fear shifted toward mutual respect. Still, challenges remained. Not every species embraced humanity's vision, and pockets of resistance lingered in the far reaches of space. But these struggles only strengthened humanity's resolve. They understood now that peace wasn't something achieved overnight. It was a journey, requiring patience, persistence, and faith. Centuries later, when historians looked back on humanity's place in the galaxy, they spoke not of battles won or territories claimed, but of bridges built and lives saved. The asterisk pioneered on asterisk's plaque became a universal emblem, representing the triumph of understanding over ignorance, cooperation over conflict, and hope over despair. And so, humanity's story continued, not as conquerors or victims, but as peacemakers. Their journey proved that even the smallest light could illuminate the darkest corners of the universe, showing all who watched that a better future was possible. One star at a time, they helped the galaxy heal, carrying forward the lessons of the past and daring to dream of a brighter tomorrow.